Hello, everyone, and many thanks for your attention and time for joining this stream. Today is 15th of October. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news that Russian media is focus at this point, and hopefully you will find this update informative and useful. And if so, please don't forget to like the video and leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the algorithm, and there may be video helper. This video will manage to break through artificial obstacles or shadow ban, let's say it as it is, and will reach wider audience. We'll see. Anyways, if there will be any super chat, by the way, or question through PayPal or Boosty platforms during the stream, I will react on it. Otherwise, after new segment, I will end the live stream there. And so, okay, without any further delay, let's start the update. And first of all, I will report to you friends about work of Russian air defense systems over there last night. RIA Novosti is reporting, based on Defense Ministry, that air defense systems on duty intercepted 59 Ukrainian drones last night. I can give you some specifics on that. 17 drones were intercepted over the Rostov region, 12 over the Volgograd, 11 over the Belgorod, 9 in Voronezh, 4 in Crimea, 3 over the Black Sea, 1 drone each over the Bryansk, Kursk, and Oryol regions in response to attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces. I will add, with assistance of NATO, Russian troops are striking with the high precision air, sea, and land based weapons, as well as drones, exclusively at the military facilities and enterprises of Ukrainian military industrial complex. This report from RIA Novosti said. And well, next news is about Ukrainian crisis, obviously. Also, the proxy war that West is waging against Russia under the leadership of US. And yesterday, during the second live stream, I did said that exactly at the time that I was online, Trump was having a meeting with the president of Argentina, Milei, and I predicted that Trump will most likely make some crazy statements, and he didn't disappoint. He actually went to say quite a lot of lies and nonsensical stuff. But let's go through some of his statements now. Well, we have RIA Novos's report here that Trump spoke about their upcoming meeting with Zelensky yesterday, exactly during that meeting with Milei. And afterwards, he spoke to a journalist. So Vladimir Zelensky will request Tomahawk missiles at his October 17 meeting. U.S. President Donald Trump announced. We have quotes here. The president is coming to see me on Friday, tomorrow, and I know what he's going to say. He'd like to get Tomahawks. American leader noted. And well, this is not surprise for none of us. Obviously, we knew about this, but I have a short video of his other statements too, and let's go through this video. And at some moments, I will just stop to highlight that he's lying, straight up lying. By the way, when last time he said anything that is at least correlated with the truth, I have no freaking idea. But well, let's go through this video now.
Preview your meeting with Ukraine President Zelensky on Friday. You expect to talk about weapons?
Yeah, no, we have an interesting meeting going on. Look, I'm very disappointed because Vladimir and I had a very good relationship, probably still do. I don't know why he continues with this war. This war has been...
First of all, lie, by the way. He never had no good relationships with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, or any relationship at all. Just because he has spoken to a Russian president once or twice, or have seen him, does not mean that they have any relationships at all. This delusional orange goblin, has to be put in his place, clearly, right? This freaking moron. But and everyone is sick and tired to hear how disappointed Trump is with Vladimir Putin. Who gives a fuck, for God's sake, man? Go kill yourself, bitch. Right? Sorry for my French, but
so bad for him. He's going into 4 years of a war that he should have won that war in 1 week.
Yet again, another lie. This is a Western false narrative that Western so-called elites come up with, right? That Russia has to win or will win this war in 3 days' time. And just because Russia did not win in 3 days' time, then that means Russia is losing. Yet again, everyone at this point probably are sick and tired to hear this nonsense from these Western so-called leaders, right? But just because, by the way, only reason why I pay any attention to this fucking animal, Trump, is that he is a president of U.S. For shame of the U.S. citizens, actually, right? That they have this moron as their president, right? This is the only reason why anybody cares what this motherfucking animal has to say, man. Right? But anyways, sorry yet again for my French, but okay, let's continue. When it comes to this Ukrainian crisis, we all know that in March, April 2022, there was a preliminary agreement between Moscow and Kyiv regime, right? And if that agreement was implemented, there would be no prolonged conflict, right? There would be no this prolonged conflict, by the way. We all know that. But why agreement was not implemented? Because globalists, neocons, and their bitches in the leadership of Western countries get engaged, right? Get involved. Boris Johnson from UK, that was the prime minister formally at the time. Also, officials from US State Department, CIA, Pentagon went into Kyiv and derailed that agreement. That's it. That's why this conflict, this first phase of special military operation, did not end in weeks as it should, right? They derailed it. And now these animals are coming up and saying that, well, you look, this war is continuous for 4 years. Why? Because Russia is engaged in a conflict with the whole of NATO, maybe with the exception of Hungary, although even in case of Hungary, by the way, they are still providing some assistance to Kyiv regime to nowadays. Maybe not offensive weapon systems, but they do provide quite significant assistance nevertheless. So we are engaged in a conflict with entire freaking NATO, right? NATO financed this war, NATO member states, for $500 billion plus dollars, right? If you counter everything, most likely significantly higher than that. They are providing money, they are providing weapons, they are providing intelligence, and they are using best militaries that they can come up with, which is our brainwashed brothers and sisters on the Kyiv-controlled territory that can actually fight, unlike US militaries, unlike British militaries, unlike German militaries or Italian or French militaries. Russian people can actually fight, right? And that's why this civil war that unfortunately West did manage to provoke is so bloody, right? Because if Russians know anything, it's how to fight. So no one can say that, well, NATO is not engaged and stuff, and NATO did not deploy its troops, so therefore, how you can say NATO is in this war? First of all, NATO did deploy their troops also, special forces, right? Intelligence officers. There were several reports about NATO generals being killed on the battlefield. What they were lost on the battlefield there, or on Kyiv-controlled territory, right? But what is most important, NATO is using money and weapons, and unfortunately, our brainwashed brothers and sisters on the Kyiv-controlled territory that are 10 times more battle capable than Western armies ever will be. So it is NATO's war on Russia, period. There is nothing to discuss there, right?
He's now going to soon be into his 4th year. He's lost 1.5 million soldiers.
Another lie, by the way. Another lie. I don't know who is telling him this nonsensical stuff, Kellogg or Rubio or whomever, right? But he repeats time and again and embarrasses the whole of US, by the way, right? While being this ill-informed as a president of the country. This is not the first time he's talking about Russia losing some million and a half military personnel. What the hell is he talking about? Total idiot, man.
Probably close. Certainly in terms of wounded and no legs and no arms and all the things that happened, in horrible wars. It's a horrible war. That's the biggest thing that's happened since World War II in terms of death. It's bigger than any of them. I settled 8 of them. The biggest is that in terms of death. Incredible. I think India, Pakistan had great potential too. We did a great job in that one, but he's got to really settle this war. And you know, they have long lines waiting for gasoline in Russia, right?
Another lie, by the way, that Trump is pushing for quite some time now, that there is a gasoline shortages in Russia, and there are people cannot fill up their tanks in the cars. Total lie, by the way. There was some disruption in poorly managed gas stations, especially in some of the southern parts and most eastern parts of Russia, by the way, towards Pacific Oceans, that are not in any way, shape, or form related to these oil refineries that U.S. was targeting, right? And now we know that it was U.S. that was orchestrating all these attacks on Russian refineries on the European part of the country, right? Media already reported about it. So poorly managed gas stations did experience some shortages, but that's it, right? It's not the issue for the whole of Russia. But anyways, Trump still continues to push this freaking nonsensical stuff, right? Because these idiots, by the way, still think that Russia is some sort of a gas station, right? If you disrupt oil or energy sector, economy gonna collapse and that kind of nonsense. And I have shared how many times, dear friends, actual information about role that Russian energy sector plays in the Russian budget, for example. It's a 15-20%. Income of Russian federal budget from whole of energy sector, oil and gas primarily, is about 15-20%. Is that looks like Russia is a gas station? If so, then from where this 80% or main part of their income is coming from? Aliens are giving us that money, or maybe there is other industries also in the place, right? Agricultural industry, mechanics, all sorts of IT technologies, and so on, right? Anyways, man, let's continue. So you see, this freaking imbecile is lying constantly in every freaking sentence that he says.
Yeah, right. They have long lines. Who thought that was going to happen? And all of a sudden, his economy is going to collapse.
Yet another lie that Russian economy going to collapse. Truly, who is telling this imbecile this stuff, man? Who is telling this imbecile this stuff? That Russian economy going to collapse? What the hell is wrong, man? These morons, huh?
And I'd like to see him do well. I mean, I had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin, but he just doesn't want to end that war. And
no,
I think
this is another lie. Russian president was very clear that he wants to end this conflict. He never wanted to be engaged in this conflict to begin with, right? But it was a NATO that orchestrated coup d'etat in 2014 in Kiev, and it was a NATO and NATO member states that destroyed basically Budapest Memorandum when in 2008 invited Ukraine and Georgia to join NATO, officially invited, by the way, right? So if anyone has started this war, it's NATO, it's the West, period. There is nothing to discuss there.
Looked very bad. He could end it. He could end it quickly.
And we can end this war quickly. On that point, he is correct. If NATO will withdraw, right? If NATO countries will withdraw their military and their financial assistance, intelligence assistance to the regime, Russia will finalize this special military operation in a matter of months or two. That's it. But of course, we all understand that until Russia will force NATO countries to kneel and capitulate, they're not going to stop. They're not going to freaking stop, man. We all know that. And you know what? We're going to force them to kneel. We're going to embarrass these motherfucking animals, man, on front of the whole world. And it would not take too long. Mark my word. Mark my word, by the way. Day is coming when we will put these fucking animals that Western so-called elites are into their places very soon.
And I have to tell you, I give credit because who would think that Ukraine could have fought Russia for 4 years to essentially a standstill? Now, there has been some...
Another lie, standstill. This is a very much beloved lie of Western propaganda, right? That there is a standstill, stalemate, no movements. Russia has no progress on the battlefield, while literally almost on daily basis, right? I'm reporting about progress of the Russian militaries and about liberation of more and more settlements on different sectors of the front line. So in this 2-minute episode, by the way, this freaking imbecile lied a couple of dozen of times. And this moron is a president of the United States, man. What the hell, man? What the hell? If I was US citizen, man, I would be shamed. I would be shamed that this creature, represents the country, for sure.
Early, before they knew what the hell was happening, because it happened quick. Biden should have never let that happen. That's a war that should have never happened, but it did. But it's not making Russia look good, I will tell you that.
We need tomahawks in Ukraine?
We'll be talking about Ukraine, yeah. I mean, I have the president coming in on Friday, and I know what he has to say. He wants weapons. He would like to have tomahawks. Everyone else wants tomahawks. And we have a lot of tomahawks.
When it comes to tomahawks, by the way, no matter what Zelensky wants, even if US will transfer 100, 200, 100,000 tomahawks, what Zelensky gonna do about it? Dance around these missiles, sleep on these missiles, kiss these missiles, prey on these missiles. What Zelensky and his freaking associates gonna do about it? They cannot launch these missiles, right? Because without US directly being engaged in launches of these missiles, Kyiv regime cannot do literally anything with them, right? We all know this. So yet another lie, yet another attempt to push this false narrative that, it's a Kyiv regime that is behind all these attacks. US has nothing to do with it, while US has everything to do with it, right?
Tomahawk is do you need any tomahawks in Argentina?
You can cross Moscow tomahawks.
You need them for your opposition, I guess, because see, in this country, they'd use tomahawks for the opposition. I don't do that. I'm much nicer. The Democrats would use them if they had the chance. They're sick people. Go ahead.
President, are you worried that this plan with Argentina can fail?
Anything can fail. Anything
Okay.
can fail.
Okay. That's enough. That's enough, I guess. I was absolutely correct yesterday, by the way, during that second live stream, when I said that Trump gonna go ahead and make quite a number of nonsensical, crazy statements. That's exactly what he did, and you listened to at least part of it, right? And I do have a few more clips, by the way, to demonstrate how insane and embarrassing for the US this creature is and should be, right? And when it comes to the topic of tomahawks, dear friends, we should understand that even if US will use against Russia all stockpiles of Tomahawk missiles, they have like 4,100 missiles approximately, right? Even if they will use all of it, they're not going to be able to turn the tide. First of all, once these Tomahawk missiles are launched, probably finally Moscow will take some stronger stands and retaliate on military and logistical assets of US and other NATO member states that are directly engaged in this war against Russia. I hope so. I really hope once these Tomahawk missiles are launched, Moscow will finally make a political decision to authorize Russian militaries to take whatever actions are necessary to keep their enemies, to put enemies into their places, including US, UK, France, Germany, and all the others, right? I really hope we will do this. But if for whatever reason Putin will decide that he's going to continue with this restrained policies, and he is a president, by the way, decision is up to him, right? Because that's how a system works. Even in that case, if US will launch all those 4,000 Tomahawks, by the way, against Russia, you think they will be able to turn the tide? No, no, they will lose anyways. They will use a loser anyways. By the way, there is no scenario, by the way, that can turn the tide in this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. That's how it is. Anyways, let's continue, dear friends, with some other news. And well, my apologies for being a bit emotional today, but it's that kind of day, I guess. I wake up tired, by the way, and I'm gonna do some. I don't know, man. I'm gonna do something about this schedule because it's freaking killing me, man. But anyways, let's continue with some other news. And yesterday, I reported that U.S. permanent representative to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, made, according to press reports, by the way, made a statement that U.S. will announce today U.S. will make some major announcement about deliveries of weapon systems to Kiev regime, right? And all the media outlets began speculating that maybe today we will hear official statements from Washington about transfer of Tomahawk missiles in Europe to be used against Russia. But later on, Matthew Whitaker denied these claims in the media and said that he did not actually stated that announcement will be made about U.S. weapons transfers. He was talking about European countries to make some statements about it, right? So therefore, some clarification is definitely needed there. Maybe Whitaker was told from Washington that it's not his business to make such statements. Trump will make statement when necessary, and therefore, most likely, towards the evening yesterday, Whitaker made change his stance, right? And he said that, well, I was talking about the European countries that gonna make some major announcement, not the U.S. But in any case, today or tomorrow, probably we will learn some more about Tomahawks or potentially some other weapon systems being deployed against Russia by Washington. And as I already said, even if our enemies will use all their long-range weapon systems with the conventional warheads against Russia, they're not going to be able to turn the tide. Not just Tomahawk missiles, but whatever long-range weapons they have, they can use it against us, and they still would not be able to turn the tide. First of all, most of those missiles will be destroyed by Russian air defense systems, right? And secondly, by the way, maybe not all members of our community do have a good understanding of, for example, Russian military industrial facilities. For example, to really take out Uralvagon Zavod, for example, plant that produces armored vehicles for Russian militaries, for example, nuclear weapons have to be used. Even if US will send all 4,000 Tomahawk missiles to strike Uralvagon Zavod, probably they would not be able to completely destroy this facility. That's how massive it is, right? It was built in such a way that, theoretically speaking, only nuclear weapon will be able to actually destroy it in such a scale that plant will not be able to produce anything. Maybe even nuclear warhead would not work. Depends on yield, right, of the nuke. And I'm saying this just to have a more or less good understanding how Russian military industrial complex is operating and how it's being built. And if anybody in the West thinks that, well, now Tomahawk missiles going to be deployed against Russia and this will make some decisive changes and stuff, well, they are all so mistaken, by the way, so mistaken. I don't think there is even any point or have any argument with those people because they are just freaking morons, man. Anyways, let's continue. And yesterday I mentioned during the second update that Lukashenko, president of Belarus, made some interesting statements in regards to Tomahawk missiles and the relationships with Washington. And I think there is a possibility, and that these statements of Lukashenko was maybe discussed with Putin prior, right? And maybe these statements are messages not just from the Minsk but also from Moscow. I think this is a possibility, and that's why I'm repeating this news, dear friends, that yesterday Lukashenko stated that Tomahawks in Ukraine will escalate the situation to the nuclear war. Trump understands this the best and does not rush to give away the deadly weapon, according to Belarusian president. So I don't know what Trump understands or not understands. It is difficult to know what that amoeba understands, right? It's a creature with like maybe one brain cell, maybe even not that, right? Maybe Trump is exactly on the level of amoeba, by the way, that has no brain cells whatsoever, right? That disgusting creature, man. But anyways, quite significant message here from Lukashenko and potentially from Moscow too, that deployment of Tomahawk long-range missiles might trigger a Russian response and eventually might risk a nuclear war. And maybe this message means that Moscow has made up mind, finally. You know, that's why I think this statement is important. Maybe these words of Lukashenko means that Moscow has made up the mind, and once Tomahawk missiles are launched, Russian militaries will finally receive authorization to take whatever actions is necessary to deter hostile forces, right? And that is yet again US first of all, UK, obviously France, Germany, Italy, and all the others. But by the way, Poland, Baltic Chihuahuas, everybody. Maybe hands of Russian militaries will be untied after Tomahawk missiles being deployed against Russia, and I hope that is going to happen exactly because Western elites, by the way, only understand language of force. Probably all of us will agree on that Western elites only understand language of force. And these restraint policies of the Russian leadership that we have seen in the past 3+ years, I mean, is not working. Is not working, right? Because West escalates time after time after time after time and on a bigger and bigger scale. Now they are talking about deployment of nuclear-capable missiles against Russia. What is going to be next if Moscow continues with restraint policies? Deployment of actual nukes against Russia? I mean, what else is left, by the way? NATO has no army to deploy it against Russia because we will freaking eat them alive, right? So what is the next, by the way? They send tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, fighter jets, long-range weapon systems. What else is left? Nukes? So why should Moscow continue this restraint policy? Let's talk to our enemies with their only language they understand, with language of force. Let's do it, man. And what happened will happen, you know. And also when it comes to statements of Lukashenko, by the way, he didn't just issued yesterday this sort of a strict warning that deployment of Tomahawk missiles might trigger serious response from Russian side, but he also offered an off-ramp to Trump. Once again, this would not work, obviously, but nevertheless, Lukashenko, maybe also on behalf of not just himself, but on behalf of Russia, once again offered an off-ramp to Trump's administration while saying that, well, Belarus is ready to conclude a big deal with the United States. And you know, Belarus is a strategical partner of the Russian Federation, and obviously, big deal between Belarus and the US means big deal between Belarus and Russia and the US. So Moscow, maybe last time, yesterday, through Belarusian president, offered the off-ramp to Trump's administration. And if those morons in the White House, if those imbeciles in Washington will understood this, well, they will demonstrate this understanding today, tomorrow, day after, because there is very little time left. If Washington is ready to actually de-escalate with Russia, if Washington is ready to pull out U.S. from this proxy war against Russia, okay, they still have a little time left, and they have to demonstrate that they have to take actual steps immediately. Otherwise, Lukashenko already said that deployment of Tomahawk missiles might escalate the situation towards the nuclear war, potentially. Anyways, let's continue, dear friends, with some other news. I guess all of you are tired at this point, as I am, right? With all this negativity that coming from the Western elites. I mean, all we want really, actually, to live in peace, right? Live in peace and harmony, and seek happiness and so on. But unfortunately, Western so-called elites, being an evil force and existential threat for humanity, are not allowing people anywhere to live in peace, right? That's what is happening. And by the way, yesterday, Trump was also asked about Middle Eastern developments. He was asked about Hamas, and he began threatening Hamas with the force if this organization would not disarm. Let me give you some short clip about this. Also.
Told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Yes, you say
because
quickly.
everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm. And I spoke to Hamas, and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's what they told me. They will disarm, or we will disarm them. Got it? Okay,
What
next.
is the
He's again lying, by the way. He didn't spoke to no Hamas representatives, for sure, right? What is he even talking about there? But clearly, U.S. president is threatening Hamas with military action. That's my interpretation of these statements. And now we have more and more indicators, by the way, that my initial take on this so-called Trump's 20-point peace plan was a deception operation from the very beginning. And I'm 100% convinced that this is exactly the case. Now, when Israel received their living hostages, and the process of transfer of bodies of deceased hostages is underway, once this process will end, or maybe even before that, Israel, US, UK, maybe some other allies of Israeli regime will orchestrate false flag operation. They will blame it on Palestine, and they will resume military operations. And Trump is already saying, by the way, that US is going to be engaged in that. And I remind you that about 200 US military personnel has been deployed already, according to reports, right, into Israel to monitor the situation. And in reality, I think these 200 military personnel will just prepare ground for deployment of some expeditionary forces of the US. So I think it's only a matter of days, maximum weeks, and we will see resumption of the hostilities. And Israel, with assistance of US, UK, and other NATO member states, will continue genocide of the innocent Palestinian people and committing war crimes against humanity. That's how it's going to be. And Trump is basically not even hiding his intentions, right? I don't know how US citizens going to react on it. Or do they want their military personnel to be this directly engaged in genocide? maybe US citizens don't care, man. Maybe majority of US citizens actually don't care. I don't know. After all, US is being created on a genocide, right? So maybe genociding others is just part of a culture in US. I don't know. I never lived there. I don't know what their mentality is, but it is what it is, man. They did genocide indigenous population almost completely, right? Eradicate indigenous population on territory of modern US. And since the creation of these countries, due to actions of the US, tens of millions of people were killed all over the world, right? And continues to die, including in the Palestine. So yes, maybe genociding others and killing, this mass killing and mass murder is a part of mentality of the American people, majority there, because I did not really see like massive demonstrations for peace in Washington, in New York, in Los Angeles or Chicago. There are some protests here and there, but there is nothing like a movement that was during the Vietnam War. And why is that? Maybe because US citizens actually don't care that their country is engaged in genocide. Maybe. And by the way, it's not just US. It's not just US. Europe is definitely not far away. Of course, European countries also are complicit in this genocide that Israel is committing against Palestinians. And yesterday I saw this quite interesting video, I think, when journalist is asking spokesperson of the EU, Paula Pino, what is her or EU's opinion in regards to Israel paying for rebuilding of their Gaza, because very same EU is demanding from Russia to pay for rebuilding whatever is damaged on the controlled territory, right? And you know what her answer was from EU spokesperson? That she has no comment on that. And I think this is not even double standards, right? This is an acknowledgement that EU is complicit in the genocide of the Palestinian people. They just simply don't care. And when war crime is committed by the Western countries, it's absolutely okay. But if they don't like any actions of their others, well, they're going to call it a war crime straight away, right? And blame all sorts of crimes on that side, imaginary crimes. But let me show you video itself, by the way. It's a short clip that clearly demonstrates face of the Western elites. That's what Western elites are, by the way, actually, right? Just look at this.
Several times that Russia should repay for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Do you believe Israel should repay for the reconstruction of Gaza, since they have destroyed almost all the strip and the civilian infrastructures? Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriele. It's definitely an interesting question on which I would not have any comment at this stage.
You see? No comments. Okay, by the way, I rest my case. I rest my case, man. This is Western elites. This is the face of the criminals that are in charge of the Western world, by the way. I don't know if majority of the Western societies are realizing this, but that's what it is, man. That's what it is. Anyways, let's continue, dear friends. RIA Novosti is reporting that clashes have resumed on a border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So Pakistani troops opened fire on the border with Afghanistan in response to attacks on the checkpoints in the northwestern province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. PTV reported, citing the country's armed forces. And well, clashes are not on a large scale, but we should keep in mind that this escalation between Pakistan and Afghanistan began a few days after Foreign Minister of Afghanistan made an official statement that there will be no US troops on Afghanistani territory, neither in Bagram air base or anywhere else. And I'm 100% convinced, by the way, US used its influence in Pakistan to orchestrate this escalation, to put some pressure on Afghanistan. This would not work, by the way. And this would not work well for US, and this escalation will definitely not work well for Pakistan, because unlike confrontation between Pakistan and India, which is kind of uniting different groups in the Pakistani territory, conflict of Pakistan with Afghanistan is very different. It divides all sorts of groups in Pakistan, because one should keep in mind, by the way, that on the northern western part of Pakistan, there is a very significant population of the Pashtuns, right? Pashtun people are majority in Afghanistan, right? And Taliban movement is extremely popular among Pashtuns, and there are some other groups also, right? And well, if this escalation continues, I'm quite sure, by the way, Taliban will decimate Pakistan. And nuclear weapons that Pakistan has not going to help, because what you're going to do with your nukes against Talib forces, by the way, that are extremely decentralized, right? You can take out the whole leadership of Taliban, but that would not affect actually operations of this group much, right? So Pakistan is risking, by the way, big time. And if Islamabad continues acting irresponsibly on behalf of Washington, then I think they will pay their price for that. Of course, China will try to put some sense into Islamabad to de-escalate, because China is not going to be happy with Islamabad due to this escalation, for sure. And China also has certain influence there. But if Chinese attempt to bring Pakistani leadership to their senses would not work, I'm quite sure China will use its means to enhance capabilities of Taliban. And China has great relationships with the Taliban, by the way, right? So Islamabad is risking big time, to say the least. Islamabad is risking big time. This country might cease to exist if leadership of Pakistan continues be this crazy. Pakistan is risking to cease to exist, literally. It will get full-scale disintegration. When it comes to Middle East, I have this report, dear friends. Afghanistan and Pakistan can be just partially be taken as a part of a bigger Middle East. It's Central Asia, more geographically speaking. But Syria is a Middle East, right? And today, Syria's current leader, Ashara, will visit Moscow. Maybe he's already here, and he will have a meeting with the Russian President Putin, I believe, which is quite unfortunate, to say the least, also, by the way, because I don't think very many people here in Russia has any respect for this terrorist creature, reformed terrorist, as Western media loves to say, right? And this report, this news, by the way, that I'm sharing right now was posted originally on Kirill Fyodorov's channel on Telegram, one of the biggest channels, right? One of the biggest channels on Telegram in Russian segment, and look at the reactions. When I make this screenshot, 78,000, almost 79,000 people saw this report on that channel. More than 2,000 people were angry about it. More than 400 people disliked. Almost 300 people were kind of shocked. What the hell is going on here? 150 people just laughed because I guess those people feel that this is embarrassing for Russia. Only 42 likes. And I think these reactions, I think, actually represents how Russian society will feel about this information. Vast majority probably would dislike this development, but yet again, politics and the geopolitics are quite complex stuff, isn't it? And the Russian president, I guess, don't really has much option but to deal with these regimes all over the world that don't really deserve any respect, right? But they are factual power. They are actual power on the ground, so therefore you cannot ignore objective reality, isn't it? Objective reality has to be acknowledged, and this is one of the reasons why Russian president probably will have a meeting with this creature, Sharam. Unfortunate, by the way. If Russia withdraw bases from Syria straight after Assad's regime's fall, or when Russian side already realized that Assad regime is going to fall, the regime is unable to stabilize the situation, to deal with their corruption, right? And I'm quite sure Russian side knew what was coming for quite a while, because they were there, right? Russian troops were there. They were seeing that Syrian generals or generals of Assad regime were engaged in all sorts of corrupt dealings, including with the terrorists and so on. So I think Russian troops should withdraw at that point, right? Or at least Russian bases should withdraw when these terrorists overthrow, right, the Syria and establish their regime. But for whatever reason, Moscow decided to keep these bases in Syria, which is a mistake in my personal opinion, right? But decision was made, and now Moscow is kind of cornered in some sense, right? Because there is a Russian bases, there are Russian citizens on those bases, Russian military personnel, potentially civilian contractors, right? And you have to secure these people. And one way to secure these people is to have some sort of deal with this regime in Damascus that is led by Ashara, this scum of humanity, right? So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Really unfortunate that we are in this situation, but that's how things are. And we have RIA Novos's report that Kremlin reported on Putin's talk with the Syrian president. So Vladimir Putin on the Syrian President Vladimir Putin and the Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara will discuss prospects for developing bilateral ties and their situation in the Middle East at the meeting, the Kremlin press service reported. So they will be face-to-face meeting, by the way, between Putin and al-Shara. The counterparts will hold the talks as a part of al-Shara's working visit to Moscow. The plan is to discuss the current state of prospects for the development of the Russo-Syrian relations in the political, trade, economic, and humanitarian spheres, as well as the latest developments in the Middle East, the statement said. What can I say about it? Very unfortunate that we are in a situation when we have to deal with this regime in Damascus, by the way. We just have to, because yet again, first of all, because there are Russian bases still there. And I have no freaking idea why we need those bases in Syria, for what exactly reason. If there is any knowledge in Russian intelligence community that Latakia province gonna declare independence, and in Latakia province there is a majority, I believe, is Shiites, right? In that case, majority is a Shiite sect, by the way, Alawites, right? So if there is certain knowledge among intelligence and military community that and political leadership that in Syria would not stay on the political map in the current state for long, and it will undergo full-scale disintegration, and western parts, this coastal part of Latakia province will go independent at one point. In that case, okay, one might argue that there is a justification for presence of the Russian military bases there. But if nothing like that is going to happen, then what is the reason to keep those bases in Syria, man? Why? I don't know. Maybe you know, dear friends. Share your opinion in the comment section, but I have no freaking idea. TASS news agency is reporting that Trump claims U.S. hit yet another boat allegedly carrying some drug dealers. And this attack was conducted off coast of Venezuela, and another 6 people were killed, by the way. So if I remember correctly, until now, under Trump's order, 21 people were executed during these attacks on the boats off coast of Venezuela. Right, so this number is rise to 27, right? So Trump is clearly freaking mass murderer, by the way, not just because of his indirect participation in the genocide of Palestinian people, but he is a mass murderer because he actually killed, under his direct orders, 27 people were killed without due process. And the only justification we heard is that, well, those people on the boats were drug traffickers. Remember, first boat was destroyed when some 11 or 13 people were on board. And do you remember any instance when U.S. Coast Guard boarded a vessel of alleged drug traffickers, and there was an anti-trafficking delegation there on the boat from drug cartels? No, there was never, ever such instance, right? Usually it's a 1 person on a boat or 2 person like that, stuff like that, but not a freaking delegation. And in yesterday's strike, Trump executed basically another 6 people. And why on a boat with the freaking drugs, 6 people were placed? Why? It makes no sense, right? So maybe these people were smuggled into U.S. Maybe this was people smugglers' boat, right? That were orchestrating, that were, trying to get into U.S., but not the drug traffickers or something. I don't know, man. I don't know, but without due process to execute people like that, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. These are criminals. Trump might say these are terrorists and so on, and they are not terrorists, by the way. These drug cartels, at least for now, they did not carry out no terrorist attacks on U.S. In Latin American countries, they did conduct terrorist acts, right? But in U.S., I don't really remember. But even if just fuck it, man. Trump is a mass murderer in any ways, right? There is not even point to try to understand what the hell is going on in Washington at this point, because these criminals, Trump and their others, are doing whatever they want. They are conducting war against their own cities, by the way. Trump, while disregarding Constitution of the U.S., is sending troops, American troops, to fight American citizens, by the way, all over the country. So what are we talking about? He does not give a fuck about his own citizens, man. Why would he care about these poor people on the boats, man? Potentially people that were dreaming about reaching U.S., dreaming about better life and stuff like that, right? Because yet again, I don't believe drug cartels are putting entire freaking delegations on this boat. And when you see boat was destroyed and there was 11, 13, 6 people on the boat, there is a next to none chances that these are actually boats that carries drugs. These are boats that probably are carries people into US. If it's directed to US at all, right? We at this point don't even know what was happening with those boats and who those people were, right? So it is what it is, man. Also, Donald Trump, second time in last several days, went to mock Spain and insult Spain, right? Because they are not willing to pay 5% of their GDP for defense means. Understandably so, by the way. I guess Spanish elites, even though unfortunately Spain is directly engaged in a war against Russia and they did send quite a lot of weapons, I guess they do understand that Russians are not coming. Russia's not going to attack Spain, right? And they don't want to spend, they don't want to get bankrupt, by the way, and spend 5% of their GDP on military, right? Because they have no need for that. And Spain is one of the few, by the way, in Europe that actually says no. Trump thinks it's only Spain, but it's not just Spain. There are some other countries too. But only few, by the way. Rest of them say, okay, boss, we will bankrupt our countries. We will shut down all sorts of social spendings, but or investments in infrastructure and stuff, but we will enrich your military industrial complex in the US. That's what majority European countries say, but Spain said no, we don't care, right? And they are standing on this position, at least for now, and Trump is threatening, and he might actually do some crazy stuff, by the way. I mean, I don't know if he understands that Spain, at least formally, is an ally of US. Maybe he don't understand that too. He is a freaking moron, isn't it? So therefore, he might actually come up with some tariffs on Spain in a relatively short time. So let me give you this short video on that. Just listen to this imbecile, man.
Nice. I think it's very disrespectful to NATO. In fact, I was thinking about giving them trade punishment through tariffs because of what they did. And I may do that. I think unbelievably disrespectful. Spain, the only one out of all the countries in NATO, the only one that said that is Spain. And I think that's, I think they should be punished for that. Yes, I do.
What is unbelievably disrespectful is when president of one country is talking this way about leadership of other country, especially when these countries are formally at least allies. That's disrespect. But yet again, Trump is a freaking moron, isn't it? And he don't understand what ethics are, what diplomacy is. Who the hell is Trump to talk about Spain this way, man? Does he even knows anything about Spain? Does he understands that Spain itself is quite a self-sufficient civilization, by the way, right? And had played crucial, I mean, extreme role, right, in history of humanity. Does Trump knows anything about it? Can he even point out at Spain on a political map? I don't think so, by the way. I'm 100% convinced if you give a Trump a map, he will not be able to find Spain on that map. Country that is one of the biggest one in Western Europe. He will not be able to find Spain. And he is talking about with such a disrespect about their country. That, Spain has to be punished. Who the hell are you to punish Spain, for God's sake, man? Wow, this entitlement of these so-called elites in the West is something else, isn't it? Something else, man. Who they think they are? What the hell, man? If I was Spanish citizen, definitely I would be embarrassed. I would demand some strong steps to be taken by Madrid, maybe even to recall ambassador from Washington, because this is insult, by the way, of Spanish people. Not just Spanish leadership, but this is insult of Spanish people. What Trump is doing there. Insane, man, insane. A few more news, dear friends, for this update. So while Spain is upsetting Trump, I guess Finland is making him happy because we have this report also from channel Kirill Fyodorov Vayna Historia Оружия that Finland has completed their construction of their engine plant for US F-35 fifth-gen fighter jets. Their construction of their new facility for assembly and the maintenance of the engines for F-35 fighters in Lina Viori was completed on time and has been officially handed over to a company, Patria. Initially, the facility will be used for engine assembly, and then it will gradually transition to full maintenance and repair. Patria company that will operate there will carry out these tasks throughout their entire life cycle of F-35 fleet. The first Finnish F-35s will arrive allegedly by the end of 2026. So, well, quite a nice target for Russian Iskander missiles. I think Iskanders will be, enough. There may be caliber missiles too. This is not that important facility to waste Oreshnik, of course, on that. But yes, Russian militaries have additional target on the Finnish territory, and this is all due to insane policies of the Finland, right? And everybody in Finland should know that as their leadership continues to escalate with Moscow, Russian militaries will have more and more targets on the Finnish territory. And who knows, one day, globalists, neocons, and their puppet regimes among NATO member states might actually trigger direct war, by the way. And you think where Russian missile is gonna fly? Towards Finland too. And not necessarily only with their conventional warheads. This is also something to keep in mind. Anyways, RIA Novosti is reporting that this row between China and US continues, of course. And even though we have a report that I mentioned in yesterday's second update, that according to US official Jamison Greer agreement about meeting of Trump and Xi Jinping in South Korea on the sidelines of ASEAN summit is still holding. In reality, this meeting actually might not take place because Trump escalated again with China. And yesterday, for example, he came up with this statement. I can read it for you, dear friends. He wrote it on his Truth Social. I believe that China purposefully not buying our soybeans and causing difficulty for our soybean farmers is an economically hostile act. We are considering terminating business with China having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade as a retribution. As an example, we can easily produce cooking oils ourselves, so we don't need to purchase it from China. And okay, do it, man. Do it. China will sell its cooking oil somewhere else. I don't think, Xi Jinping gonna read this comment this morning and said, "Wow, I mean, what we gonna do now about it? They're not gonna buy our cooking oil, man." Holy moly, man! Unbelievable. Why Trump is handling this stuff, man? It's not president's business, right? To make statements about some cooking oil and stuff, man. It's not a president's job. Trump should be busy with some more relevant stuff, right? After all, there is an entire administration in the US for what? To deal with all sorts of issues, right? Including agricultural sector, and including cooking freaking oil. But anyways, man, I mean, more Trump talks about China, more ridiculous he looks, right? Because yet again, man, I don't think Chinese leader gonna read this comment and then issue orders to everybody that, you know what, let's go now and buy all freaking soybeans from the US, and wow, we are effed up now, because Trump, you see what Trump is doing, they're not gonna buy cooking oil from us. Holy shit, man. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. US is done. US is doomed, actually, by the way. I mean, one or two more such administrations as the current one or previous one, or all the others before, and I think US is finished, man. That country not gonna survive this nonsense, man. I'm telling you. And also RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, China is once again reports about its readiness for a trade war with the United States. This time, ambassador of China in US, Liu Pengyu, stated that China is prepared for a trade war with the United States, although they are opening door for negotiations. Classic stand, basically, of a strong side. Bring it on. We don't give a damn. We can deal with you, but we don't want it. We don't want to actually harm you. So therefore, you know what? Let's have a talk if you want to. Otherwise, come on, let us smash your freaking face. That's what Chinese are saying now, right? That's what Chinese are saying, by the way, and they are in a position to smack the hell out of U.S. leadership, man. They're gonna beat US like that, cap. They're not gonna even notice, man. That's how powerful China is, economically speaking, and how irrelevant US is. Literally irrelevant, by the way, on a world scale. I'm telling you, US GDP that is around 20 billion is actually a fake number, because that GDP number is inflated due to Silicon Valley, right? Due to these IT companies that shares of which is inflated like balloon, like, I don't know, man. There is no tomorrow. Because no US company actually worth $1 trillion, by the way, right? No US company actually worth $500 billion even. But there are quite a number of them that allegedly worth 3-4 trillion even. But that tells us that it's a bubble, right? Take this shit out of economy, and you will be left with declining barely life. Some sectors, right? That are maybe $3-4 trillion top or max in general, right? And that's it, man. While when it comes to China, by the way, Chinese GDP mainly comes from manufacturing capabilities, from a real economy, real sectors of the economy, right? Not some freaking bubbles, as it is the case in US. So therefore, I'm quite sure, by the way, Chinese can smack the hell out of US like that. That easy, man. Actually, if US has any advantage over China at this point, maybe just in a military field, still, perhaps, or maybe even not even that, because if it comes to full-scale war between China and the US, China has already like 1,500 nukes, right? According to some reports, and that is basically quite enough for guaranteed mutual destruction between these two. Anyways, let me end this news segment on this report that Trump, by the way, oh yeah, man, Trump also went to say some crazy stuff about BRICS again, by the way, and I'm gonna show you a video. I mean, you might, if you have not seen it, by the way, and if you don't know what Trump was talking about big earlier, then you're gonna laugh now. Let me show you a video. This guy is crazy, man. I'm telling you. This is something really extraordinary. So
wants to be in BRICS, that's fine, but we're going to put tariffs on your nation. Everybody dropped out. They're all dropping out of BRICS. BRICS was an attack on the dollar. And I said, you want to play that game, I'm going to put tariffs on all of your product coming into the U.S. They said, like I said, we're dropping out of BRICS. And BRICS is like, they don't even talk about it anymore. Scott, you want to add to that?
I mean, how ill informed this individual is, man? How ill informed Trump actually is? Can you tell me, dear friends? What is he talking about there? Who he threatened? Who he threatened with sanctions, and who he forced to come leave the BRICS? Do you know? Because I don't. And last time I checked, no country left the BRICS, and there is at least 2 or 3 dozen of countries that are queuing in to join the BRICS, dear friends, right? We all know this, isn't it? We all know this. So what Trump is talking about? I mean, this guy is unimaginable level of embarrassment for the US, man, because he is literally, more he talks, more he demonstrates that he is a freaking imbecile. He should shut the fuck up, right? And say nothing, because he's just too fucking stupid. That's the reality, man, right? He's saying publicly that, well, he, bullied some countries and they said, no, we're gonna leave BRICS now. In his fantasies, what the hell, man? How are you gonna comment seriously this kind of creatures, man? I don't know, man. But yet again, these statements of his does make headlines all over the world, because yet again, he's a president of US, right? Incredible, man, incredible. So that's it all. By the way, I saved this funny news for to end this news segment, when Trump is talking about that he bullies some BRICS member states with tariffs and some other stuff, and those countries decided to leave the BRICS. Does he really believes in that crap? Can you imagine how dangerous US is for whole world if we accept the possibility that Trump is actually that ill-informed, if his advisors actually are giving him this nonsense, right? And he believes in that, because if he knows that no country left the BRICS and there is actually 2-3 dozen of countries that are waiting their time to join BRICS, then why he's lying? Why is he lying, though? I don't know. It's insane, by the way, right? And dear friends, there was no super chat, but one member of our community become a premium subscriber, and let me highlight that, if I may. And after I will end this live stream. So Miss Me With It, thank you very much for premium subscription on my Rumble channel. I appreciate your support. Thank you. And that's it. There was no questions from. Okay, I understood. So this is it for now, dear friends. I guess maybe later on today, some 3 or 4 o'clock, I will have a second live stream, but I will not be able to do live stream at 10 p.m. at evening as I did yesterday. But for now, this is it. Thank you all for your attention. My apologies once again, dear friends. I always hate when I go emotional and began deploying this French language. I hate that, right? But sometimes, and we all are humans, right? And sometimes we have good days and the bad days. And I think today is not a best day for me, maybe, and that's why I get emotional. Maybe I apologize for that. But hopefully, overall, news update was okay. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary. And in case you want to support my work and this independent media project from Russia, you can do it through several means. Links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. Have a nice day and take care. Bye.